evening of June 11th, 2025, I boarded a plane headed to the Pokémon North American International Championships in New Orleans. We were totally exhausted at the very beginning of our trip because we had actually missed our flight there earlier in that day. But after an entire journey of its own, we did make it to New Orleans for the Pokémon Internationals. And Pokémon technically greeted us the second we got off the plane. You could actually pick up your badge in the airport this year, but since I was a content creator, I had to pick my badge up in a special location, so I couldn't do this. From the airport, we went right to our hotel, and the next morning I was ready to go. There was quite a bit on my mind. Good morning from New Orleans. I am here for the Pokémon North American International Championships. Pokemon provided me with free access to this weekend's awesome event. And yeah, we got in really late last night and I am insanely tired. But it's going to be fun because today is going to be the day that I get to get a sneak preview of the Pokémon Center at this year's event. And I've actually never gone to a Pokemon championships or a regionals or anything like that as a official Pokemon content creator. This has never happened before, so I'm a little nervous, but I'm also very excited. I'm also in a brand new place. I've never been to Louisiana ever, so this is going to be a lot of fun. I've heard that the food is really good, and I'm looking forward to trying some of that out as well. I'm going to try to vlog my experiences as much as I can, realistically, because I also kind of want to enjoy myself too, and I don't want to be too much on my phone, but at the same time, there's a lot of fun stuff to share, so let's go. My first time within the convention hall was so exciting. I was on a mission because I had an appointment at the Pokémon Center that was specially created by Pokémon for creators. Very nervous, but also very excited, I made my way to the badge pickup. I was attending as a content creator and Aaron was actually attending as a competitor, so we had two very different experiences of this. But thankfully, we were both able to avoid the heat of Louisiana as much as possible. After meeting up with some other lovely Pokémon content creators, we were let inside. And oh my gosh, you guys, the Pokémon Center this year was huge. For those of you who don't know, you can't actually go to a Pokémon Center outside of Asia in most cases. However, you can go to a pop-up store that appears at NAIC each year. It's a really fun way to interact with other Pokemon fans and pick up your much wanted Pokemon merch. In fact, I even got to hang out with Pikachu while I was there. For most trainers, you had to make a reservation to enter this store, but thankfully, because I was a content creator, Pokemon invited me to this special preview, so thanks so much again, Pokemon. At this year's Pokemon North American International Championships, there was quite a lot of exclusive merch, as well as merch that you know and love from the online Pokemon Center store. In fact, they had quite a lot of TCG. This is the second time that I have ever been to a Pokemon North American Internationals event, and also the Pokemon North American International's Pokemon Center. And although it is normal to have some exclusive merch, this year was so cool. The stock when I went to the store was brand new, so you were able to see everything at its full capacity, and the good news is a lot of it lasted throughout the weekend. The featured mascot of NAIC this year was Ogerpon, as well as Psyduck and Wooper. It was really cute. If you're a fan of Pokemon plush like I am, it was like a dream come true in here. If I had had more space in my luggage, I would have picked up this Giratina plush. Right next to it, I found this Gigantamax Alcremie plush, and I had to call over Alcremie Sunday to see the Alcremie plush.
It is Alcremie Sunday with Alcremie Sunday.
For those of us embracing our inner fashionistas, there were also some excellent options at the Pokemon Center for apparel. This year, special sweatshirts, t-shirts, and hoodies were made for the Pokemon North American International Championships. And something that made me very happy was that they actually had plus sizes this year. They also had phone cases as well as a huge collection of pins. And actually, there was a pin trading board at this year's NAIC, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. In the moment, I was just so excited.
So I'm at the Pokemon Center and it is so cool in here. They have so much cool stuff. if you've ever been to a Pokemon regional or nationals before, you'll probably know the drill. They have a limit on how many of each thing you can buy, but it's very well stocked right now. Again, I'm here for the early viewing, so I hope it stays this well stocked for the rest of the competitors. I will say they have so many cute exclusive things this year that I did not see anywhere else that I've been. And I'm really hyped to be here.
Every time I go to a Pokémon Center store, whether it be a pop-up or one in Japan, I have told myself each time that I will not be spending a ton of money. And to be fair, I did spend less than I expected, but not by much. If you've never visited a Pokemon Center store before, it is literally a Pokemon fan's dream come true. Imagine the Pokemon Center online website, but just in front of you as an actual retail location. That's pretty much what it's like. And if you're not mentally prepared before you go in there to spend money, well, you will end up in a situation like I usually do. Another thing that I wanted to talk about was how cool the design of the store was. In addition to merch, you could also see these really awesome pieces of art all over the center. I actually collect the Pokemon Sitting Cuties plush, and they had a huge wall of them. I ended up choosing Blaziken, which was my very first Pokemon in my very first Pokemon Sapphire game, and Vespiquen because it's just so cute. Since this was my very first time attending a Pokemon North American International Championships as a creator, I really didn't know what to expect going in. But I'll tell you, being able to walk around the Pokemon Center early was such a treat, and I also got to hang out with Eevee. Since 2025 is the year of Eevee, it felt extra special to say hello to my little friend here. Fearing for the safety of my wallet, I decided to cut myself off and go to the checkout area, which was really well decorated. In fact, Gengar even told us where to pay. While I was finishing up, Aaron was actually outside picking up his competitor kit. In case you don't know, you can actually get special merchandise just for competing at NAIC. This is called a competitor kit. By this point, we were getting pretty hungry, so we stepped out of the convention center for a bit and headed over to a really famous place called Mother's Restaurant. This was actually my very first meal in New Orleans because we got there so late the night before I hadn't eaten anything yet. And as I was recommended a po' boy, I got to try one for the very first time, and it was delicious. After lunch, several Pokemon content creators and I made a side trek to go to a museum because we wanted to see local art, and then we went back to the convention center because it was way too hot to be outside. This was the perfect day to check out the Pokemon Play Lab. If you don't already play the Pokemon TCG or VGC and you would like to get an appreciation for what the competitors are doing right on the other side of the wall, this was a great way to do that. At the Pokemon Play Lab, you could basically just learn how to play the game. A certified Pokemon professor would help you figure out how to play the Pokemon game, and you could either do TCG or VGC. My first round, we did TCG. For this demo, we had to choose either a Pikachu deck or a Charizard deck, and of course, I went with the Pikachu deck, and I actually ended up winning, which was awesome. After completing the demo, I was handed a sample deck as well as a really cool Glaceon pin. Alongside several other creators, we went back in the line to try again in the Play Lab for the VGC part. For this VGC section of the Play Lab, you could either play Pokemon Scarlet or Violet or Pokemon Unite. And since I have plenty of experience playing Pokemon Scarlet or Violet, I wanted to try out Pokemon Unite. And you guys, look how sweet our Pokemon professor was. Isn't she so cool? I was playing alongside K-Berry Kim as well as Stephosaurar, who are extremely lovely Pokemon content creators who you should definitely give a follow to if you do not already. Anyway, we got to select what kind of Pokemon and what kind of outfit we wanted to bring to the Pokemon Unite table, and I'm gonna be so real with you guys, this is like one of my very first times playing Unite, and it was actually a lot of fun. And our Pokegal squad did so good that we actually won the entire battle, which was awesome. And just like before, while we waited for our friends to finish up their battle, we were given some really special prizes for completing the Play Lab. You may have missed this, but there was actually a Play Lab store as well that sold some really cute Pikachu deck boxes as well as other TCG items. Oh, and they also had these plush backpacks that I just had to throw in here because they're so funny looking. Overall, I had so much fun at the Play Lab, and I highly recommend if you're ever at a Pokemon event that you should absolutely try try it for yourself. After our day in the play lab and at the Pokemon Center, I was exhausted and we had a big day ahead of us. On day 1 of the tournament, we attended the opening ceremony at the convention center super early in the morning. So if you've never been to one of these kinds of events before, the tournament lasts 3 days, and if you didn't know this part, I really recommend that you go to the opening ceremony because it's really fun. Alongside some Pokemon creator friends, we sat in basically like the front row and got to see the festivities up close. And man, was it cool.
International championships thus far this year. This is the final stop.
And then the tournament began, and that was my cue to leave the area and go take a look at the rest of the convention center. This year in the convention center, there were many photo ops. In fact, a lot of them had to do with Pokemon Legends ZA, which is coming out later this year. Since I had already attended the Pokemon Center Special Creator Hour, I was not allowed to enter the store once again for the rest of the weekend, but I was able to go up to the merch rooms. If you are someone who cannot get a Pokemon Center reservation, or you just really don't want to wait in a long line, this is another option at Pokemon events. All of the merchandise sold in these special locations are all authentic, and it was really cool to see all of the TCG, plush, and in fact there were certain plush that hadn't even been released overseas here in the US yet. Whenever I go to an official Pokemon tournament event, I always like taking a look at the different merch tents or booths or rooms. Honestly, it depends on what event that you're going to. And although there were so many things that I wanted to take home with me, I definitely had to be in better control than I was at the Pokemon Center because, well, I mean, look at this place. Throughout the day, you could see competitors who were coming in and out of the tournament areas. And if you were someone who either wasn't competing in the tournament or left early, you could also compete inside events where there was this awesome prize wall of really cool things that you could have won. I've done this in the past at previous Pokemon events, and I highly recommend it if you've never tried it before because it's super fun. I also found inflatable Pokemon characters that I had to stop and take photos with because, oh my goodness, toloveL. And there was this giant inflatable Pikachu that was also very good for photos. On the first day of the tournament zone energy was very tense because, as I'm sure you could imagine, everyone was competing for the title of Pokemon Master. But those of us who were not competing, like myself, were able to walk directly up to the NAIC trophies and take a closer look at them. There was also a display of the history of Pokemon games that was laid out on the floor, and I loved this. You could see the different Pokemon games as well as the devices that you were able to play them on. And because the Switch 2 had just launched when I was at this event, it really felt like we were in a new era of gaming, literally. After a long day of battles, it was really nice to go back to the hotel at the end of day 1. On day 2, we woke up at a much more normal time and went for breakfast. Our Creamy Sunday took us to Two Chicks Cafe, and it was so yummy. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it was some of my favorite food that we had on the entire trip. Afterwards, Our Creamy Sunday and I went exploring at the mall that was very close by, and we found the Crocs store that had Pokemon Crocs, and they were actually really cute. Personally, I haven't had a pair of Crocs since I was a kid, and it was really cool to see how the brand has changed over the years. After completing our side quest, we returned to the convention center for day 2 of the tournament. By this point, quite a few trainers had been knocked out of the tournament, and it was actually getting pretty lively in the hallways. So it was a perfect time for me to check out the pin trading zone, which is a totally new thing that came to NAIC this year. So I absolutely have to gush about how awesome the pin trading zone was. Essentially, you would bring Pokemon pins here to trade them for other pins that were on different Pikachu-shaped boards. Okay, but what if you didn't have any Pokemon pins on you? I know I didn't. Well, conveniently within the pin trading zone, there was a booth that had Pokemon pins for sale. In fact, you could even buy the NAIC exclusive pins here. There were just so many Pokemon pins to choose from, it was really difficult to pick just one, but I ultimately picked the NAIC exclusive one to try myself.
What pin you trading?
The international one. This one's exclusive to right here. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
What are we thinking? Yay! Yay! So good! Yay! First time been trading!
What'd you get, Joel?
For you!
Ooh, Mr. Whooper.
Aaron is a huge fan of the Wooper line, so I was super excited to get this pin for him. A couple days earlier when I went to go pick up my creator badge, Pokemon actually gifted me this Luxray pin because they knew it was my favorite. After leaving the pin trading zone, which I loved very, very much, I continued to walk down the hall to observe all of the Pokemon goodness that was all around me. It was then that we heard that Pikachu and Eevee were taking pictures in the lobby, so K-Berry Kim, Sephosaurus, and Alchemy Sunday and I went to go take a look. After greeting tons of trainers, Pikachu got a little bit tired, so it swapped places with Eevee. After waiting in line for just a bit longer, we were able to get some really cute photos with Eevee, and although we were having tons of fun, it started pouring outside. We actually had plans to meet later that day at the Pride event that was happening in New Orleans, but we had to wait a little while because of the rain. Kyogre's drizzle definitely made it rain. But later that evening, we got to explore the French Quarter, which was beautiful. I had actually never seen it before. Aaron and I were trying to locate our friends like Alchemy Sunday and Super Duper Danny, and we ended up finding them on a balcony, which was so cool. To get onto the balcony, we had to walk through a bar and climb a staircase, and it was really, really fun. It felt like we were going through a secret passageway. Our friend Lucy had found the most incredible view of Pride, and after that, to be honest, the night is kind of a blur. In the early afternoon of the final day of NAIC, I went to the top floor to visit the creator area that Pokemon had set up for us. This area was just for content creators, it was not open to the public. I really didn't get any footage in there, but I will share this really cute clip with you. It really was an honor to spend the weekend with these trainers. Later that day, I actually found someone with a Tamagotchi uni and we even got to connect. How I found someone playing Tamagotchi at a Pokemon event, the world will never know. Nonetheless, it was really cool to see that the Tamagotchi fandom was strong even here in New Orleans. There was actually a very strong overlap between my two favorite fandoms. Afterwards, I spent some more time in the Pokemon merch rooms because there were just so many things that I didn't see the first day because of the crowds. After making my final purchases for the trip, I was ready to go take a look at the final day of the tournament downstairs. So, pro tip, if you're ever around on the final day of a Pokemon tournament and you are planning to see the final matches at the end of the day, I highly recommend that you get seats earlier in the day, because despite it looking like there weren't too many people left in the convention hall, that is just not the case. Why? Well, actually, all of those people that you saw walking around for the first 2 days are now sitting in the audience watching the final matches. What that meant for me was that we had to camp out to make sure that we got seats so that we could watch those final matches in real time. Since some friends had gotten there early and were able to save seats, I was able to get up and stretch my legs one more time before the final matches began. And honestly, it got me thinking a lot about how I got to this point. And I don't just mean going to New Orleans or traveling to this special event, but specifically how I got here as a person, as a creator. I was born in the late 90s and grew up around Pokemon. It was pretty much everywhere when I was growing up. For my 8th birthday, my childhood best friend and her older brother actually bought me my very first Nintendo DS, and I got to play Pokemon Sapphire version shortly after. Then in 2007, I remember when Pokemon Diamond and Pearl came out, which was a huge deal for me as a kid. Everyone I knew was playing. And to this day, Pokemon Diamond is still my favorite Pokemon game. This one time when I was a kid, my friend and I spent hours drawing up plans for what it would be like if we were in the Pokemon world. I vividly remember what it was like to be with my friend, imagining being in a space where Pokemon fans could all get together. And even then, at age 9 or 10, I definitely could never have imagined being where I am today. The kid that was spending hours and hours a week going on their parents' desktop computer, refreshing Pokemon.com in the hopes of finding a new entry in the Pokemon mailbag part of the website, was now sitting in the audience of the Pokemon North American International Championships around lots of people who loved Pokemon. And even more surreal was the fact that the Pokemon Company International actually invited me, of all people, to document this event. So when I looked up to see Isaiah Bradner and Riley McKay battling it out in the TCG finals for the Masters division, I just felt so excited to be there. Genuinely. Seeing the joy on Isaiah's face as he won the final match was just such a wonderful feeling to experience firsthand. All of us were once kids who just wanted to be a Pokemon master, and now watching someone actually become a Pokemon master, well, that's a feeling that I can only imagine feels amazing. Even just being in the audience felt like a dream come true, so I can only imagine how amazing that everyone who won that day must have felt standing on stage accepting their awards. Truly, truly magical. And then for the VGC finals, everyone was on the edge of their seats. The final VGC match for Masters this year was Marco Silva versus Federico Camporesi. Over the course of this weekend, over 1,100 Masters division players had competed in VGC, and now we were down to only 2. And as I'm sure you can imagine, the audience was very, very excited. Funny enough, we were so excited by the battle that was unfolding in front of us that we did not notice that our entire group sitting in the front row was actually recorded by Play Pokemon and posted to their official story. How funny is that? So after making a quick cameo, we also found out very shortly after that the winner of the Pokemon North American International Championships Master VGC division was, in fact, Federico. And then, after one final hit from Federico's Lunala, history was once again made, not just for Pokemon, but for gaming in general. And let me just tell you, when you watch a final match conclude with a lot of other Pokemon fans around you, it is a feeling that I just can't explain. You have to do it for yourself if you can one day. So, after the final matches concluded, this year's closing ceremony of the Pokemon North American International Championships was extra special. On a screen in front of us was a short video that played, giving us a sneak preview at the Pokemon World Championship merchandise for this year. In case you didn't know, Worlds this year will be located in Anaheim, California, and I will absolutely be there to cover every moment that I can. Sure, NAIC was coming to a close, but that only means that we're that much closer to Worlds, and I can't wait. This past Pokemon NAIC was so incredible, and I just wanted to take a moment to thank the Pokemon Company International for inviting me one more time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you at Worlds.
More playable this weekend, so.
Yes.
Oh!
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
You can't beat that.
But you're weak to that. That's true.
Oh!